Disclaimer, this is going to be a video about breastfeeding. It is my favorite topic. I am so passionate about breastfeeding. I love breastfeeding. All things breastfeeding. It is the best thing ever. This video is going to be one of the challenges that us moms deal with breastfeeding. So if you have no interest in these kinds of videos, I wouldn't even watch it. Yeah, I've been cluster feeding right now because I'm teething and my nose is so runny and Hey guys, I'm back to talk about my favorite thing, breastfeeding. So we're currently going through cluster feeding, and if you breastfeed then you know exactly what it is, and you know that it can be a real challenge. Babies of all ages cluster feed, and for moms who have multiple children, you know what cluster feeding is. This is probably nothing new to you unless this is your first time breastfeeding. In that case, you may find this video helpful. But for anyone who is looking into breastfeeding as an option for them, you should know about cluster feeding. And if you are a new mom and you're breastfeeding for the first time and your baby seems to be crying a lot and only okay if they're nursing on you, that's called cluster feeding, and that's what this video is about. When Jake Jr. was a newborn, I had no idea that cluster feeding was even a thing. All I knew was that my baby was crying a lot and was only okay if he was nursing, and I didn't understand. And there was people around me that were like, oh, he is using you as a pacifier, you shouldn't let him do that. And I thought to myself, right, that makes sense. I don't want him to be that dependent on me. But I didn't stop him. I did a little bit of looking into it to see why in the world was wrong with my baby. And I actually found out that it's called cluster feeding, and it's totally normal. You should totally let your baby do it. It's part of their growing, and I mean, if you look into it, you will find everything says it's normal. Your baby has been inside of you for 9 months, and now it's out in the world pretty much by itself. It's its own person, and it needs you for the comfort. So in this video today, I'm going to highlight a few points that I have found here and there from other sources, and that way if anybody stumbles upon this video while they're trying to figure out what cluster feeding is or why their baby is nursing so much, maybe this video will be helpful and encouraging and motivate you to not let it get you down, because cluster feeding, it takes a toll on you. I mean, it's really hard. It is really, really hard. I get it. And you will feel, you feel like you just need some space. Like, you just need some space. But it's not about you. There's reasons that your baby is cluster feeding, and its only instinct is, I need to nurse on my mom. And a mother's instinct is, oh no, something's wrong with my baby, let me nurse them. So we know, without even thinking, what each other needs and whatever, but sometimes just need to really zero in on the bigger picture. I wanted to make a couple of points about cluster feeding, and the first is that newborns do it. It is natural, it is healthy, and newborns do it for a couple of reasons. One, they're fearful. They're fearful of the world, they're fearful of noises, of hot and cold, and they're not sure of anything, and the only thing they're sure of is that they feel good when they're nursing on their mom. So that's one reason. The second reason is they have an instinctive drive to nurse in order to establish your milk supply. Every baby needs a different type of milk supply, and their body says, okay, you need to nurse. And you know, there's a lot of chemical and hormonal interactions that are happening when a baby nurses, and it makes it, basically, it not only says this is how much we need during each feeding, but this is what needs to be in the milk. So a lot of magic is happening, and it's tough for mom to get through. You're already not getting sleep, and now this baby just wants to be attached to your body still. You're like, you've been inside of my body, can I please just have a break? But no, you really need to listen to your baby. If you want to continue breastfeeding, if you want to be successful in breastfeeding, those cluster feeds in the very beginning are so important. So I got through the newborn cluster feeding, and I was like, okay, I'm glad we got that out of the way. I don't ever want that to happen again. Well, it did, and it still does. My child is 14 months today, and he is still cluster feeding at different times. So besides newborn cluster feeds, you also have your growth spurt cluster feeds. So this is when their mind is changing and they are starting to realize how the world works, and it is kind of like an overload, and their brain says, we need to nurse, we can't handle this. So they nurse for comfort. Or their bones are growing and it hurts, and their body says, hey, there's anti-inflammatories in mama's milk, we need to nurse. So for those reasons, during growth spurts, you might have a baby that wants to cluster feed. If they seem kind of whiny, or they're coming to you, arms up, they need to feed. Yeah. Same thing with older babies. Jake Jr., like I just said, he is 14 months old, and he still has periods where he cluster feeds. And I mean, you know, normally he will nurse maybe 3 times during the day, and some days he just says no. He woke up from his nap. So, like I was saying, gosh, you look a mess. Some days he just needs to nurse more, and that's fine. And then another thing is when they're sick. When they are sick, no amount of medicine that equals breastfeeding. So, growth spurts, pain, fear, teething. When Jake Jr. teethes, he really doesn't feel very good, and he nurses. This last time, he's actually been teething this week, and he is cluster feeding all night long. So that is very tiring. So it's a challenge. It really is a challenge, but you just gotta get through it. How to get through it. So what I do is stack the pillows. I have one for my back, I have one for my head, and I have one on the other side so he doesn't roll away. But I just get really comfortable, really comfortable. I wear really comfortable clothes. Uh-oh, what happened? Or sometimes I don't even have a shirt or a bra on if it's that bad. But otherwise, I just try to get as comfortable as I can, get the water bottle close to me, my phone close to me, the remote control close to me so that I don't need to get up. I have everything that I need. Go ahead and prepare for it. It's gonna happen. I've never met anyone who said that their baby didn't cluster feed. So don't think, oh, maybe my baby won't. Your baby will. If you're gonna breastfeed, they're gonna cluster feed at some point, or points. So my biggest and best advice is pee before you start nursing. Get comfortable, have some water, and whatever else you might need to get through it. But for sure, keep in mind that your baby needs it, and it's not about you, and you can do it. Denying your baby when they need to nurse is just going to make them more unhappy, and it's going to make things more stressful for you. So if you can just get through it. But anyways, that was my spiel on cluster feeding. Can you say bye? Say bye. Bye. Bye.